Imagine spending years of your life losing sleep, building your absolute masterpiece, only for it to suddenly come alive and crush you to death. History books love to show us the victorious heroes, but they hide the brilliant, arrogant minds who openly rebelled against the laws of nature and paid for their absolute hubris with their own blood. Today we are looking at how human genius read its creators their final death sentence. Keep your eyes open, because these people were not victims of bad luck. They designed their own brutal executions with their very own hands. Episode 1: Flight to Nowhere. The year is 1973, the United States. Being stuck in endless traffic every single day will destroy a man's sanity. Aerospace engineer Henry Smolinski wanted to end this torture. He proposed a revolutionary yet absolutely insane idea: a flying car. Do you know what he chose as the base for his miracle machine, the AVE Mazar? A Ford Pinto. A car that was already a national embarrassment. A lightweight tin can infamous for exploding into flames from the slightest rear-end bump. Smolinski took this incredibly dangerous metal box and simply welded the massive, heavy wings and engine of a Cessna airplane right to the roof. Safety organizations looked at this project and panicked. They literally called it a suicide machine. But Smolinski was so blinded by his own genius, he refused to listen. September 11th, 1973, Flight Day. Smolinski and his partner Harold Blake climbed into their flying car. They sped down the runway and actually took to the skies. Everything seemed smooth, but you cannot cheat physics with blind optimism. As they reached hundreds of feet in the air, the brutal resistance of the wind had the final say. The weak, amateur welding joints holding the car and the wings together began to violently crack. And in a fraction of a second, the massive airplane wings completely detached from the roof of the car. Imagine it. You are 1,000 feet in the air. All you have around you is a wingless metal box, plummeting toward the earth like a rock. What did they feel in that moment? We will never know. The impact obliterated the vehicle. All that was left of them was crushed metal, blood, and pitch-black smoke. They had built their own personal assassin for exactly $29,000. Episode 2: The Iron Coffin. Falling from the sky is terrifying, but being trapped alive in the pitch-black depths of the ocean, waiting for your oxygen to run out, makes falling look like an easy escape. The American Civil War. Massive northern warships had blockaded the entire coastline, choking the South. To break through, inventor Horace Lawson Hunley created the first combat submarine in human history. But this was nothing like modern submarines. This was a 40-foot-long, windowless, pitch-black iron tube. No engine. Inside this dark, rusting, sweat-soaked pipe, 8 military men had to sit shoulder to shoulder. To move, they had to endlessly crank a heavy iron shaft with their bare hands, completely drenched in sweat. There was no air circulation. The oxygen would only last for 1 single hour. An absolute claustrophobic nightmare. This machine was literally cursed. On its very first test, a mechanical error flooded the sub, suffocating 5 men to death. On the second test, inventor Hunley himself took the helm. And that was his final decision. The submarine failed to surface. The inventor was buried alive inside his own iron creation. But look at the sheer stubbornness of humanity. The military pulled the submarine out of the water again. They dragged out the bloated, rotting corpses of their friends and sent the submarine into real combat for a third time. The third crew successfully rammed a 135-pound gunpowder bomb into a massive enemy ship and detonated it. The first submarine victory in history. But something horrifying happened. The sub had not backed away far enough. The deafening shockwave of the blast did not travel through the air. It traveled through the solid water at thousands of miles per hour, slamming directly into the iron walls of the Hunley. The submarine did not break, but the shock wave instantly compressed the air inside the cabin with such violent force that the lungs of all 8 men cracked and ruptured from the inside out. It's medically known as blast lung. They didn't even have time to feel pain or scream. They died silently in their seats, still gripping the iron crank, covered in their own blood. Their greatest victory had become their eternal tomb.
Episode 3. The Blood-Stained Page. Nature is cruel, but mechanisms made of iron and steel have absolutely no soul. A machine never shows mercy, it never forgives a mistake, and it does not care who you are. 1867. American inventor William Bullock created a massive breakthrough that accelerated human civilization by centuries: the continuous web rotary printing press. Before this, newspapers were printed slowly by hand. Bullock's Iron Beast used a continuous roll of paper to print 30,000 pages an hour. He was at the absolute peak of wealth and fame. But every new monster requires a blood sacrifice. On April 3, 1867, Bullock was adjusting one of his newly installed machines. The safety rule was simple: turn the machine off, attach the drive belt, turn it back on. But Bullock got lazy. Blinded by arrogance, he tried to kick the belt onto the spinning pulley with his foot while the massive engine was still running. A 1-second mistake. The drive belt slipped and caught his leg. The machine bit its creator. Without a single ounce of emotion, the multi-ton iron gears dragged his right leg inside. The heavy cogs crushed and pulverized his human bones like dry twigs. They had to stop the machine, which was now printing blood instead of ink, and desperately pull the inventor out of the gears. His leg was a mangled mess of meat and bone. Inside that shattered leg, gangrene set in. The tissue turned black and began to rot. 9 days later, surgeons began the operation to amputate his leg. But the inventor never woke up from the anesthesia. He died in agonizing pain on the operating table. He gave the world an information revolution, and one of the very first news stories the world read was how he was torn apart by his own machine. Episode 4. The Wrath of God. Iron and machines killing humans makes logical sense. But what is the punishment for those who try to directly capture the fire of the cosmos, the weapon of God in the sky? St. Petersburg. Russian physicist Georg Wilhelm Richmann attempted the impossible. He wanted to become the master of the weather, to measure and control the energy of thunderstorms. To do this, he installed a massive bare iron rod on the roof of his house, connecting it to a complex device in his room called an electrometer. On August 6th, a terrifying storm swallowed the city. Richmann rushed into his room with his assistant, vibrating with excitement. In his panic and scientific obsession, he made the most expensive mistake in human history. He completely forgot to attach the grounding wire to his lightning rod. The trap he built to welcome tens of millions of volts of electricity was now set for himself. The moment Richmann stepped within inches of his device, the rarest, most unexplainable, and terrifying anomaly in nature emerged from the tip of the iron rod. A glowing, pale blue, fist-sized orb of ball lightning. Right in front of his assistant's eyes, this sphere of fire floated silently through the air and struck Richmann directly in the forehead. The deafening electrical explosion blew the heavy wooden doors of the room right off their hinges. When the smoke and dust cleared, Richmann was lying dead on the floor. His killer was no ordinary weapon. There was a tiny, glowing red burn hole right in his forehead where the lightning had entered. And at the bottom of his left foot, his shoe was blown wide open, torn apart from the inside out. Millions of volts of cosmic fire had entered his brain, incinerated his entire nervous system in a single second,
and violently exploded out of his foot. Richmond tried to catch the fire of God, and the fire consumed him. They were not ordinary people. They were engineers and pioneers who dragged humanity into the future. But every perfect creation demands a steep, bloody price. History teaches us that the higher human hubris jumps, the more brutal the fall. Right now, we are building smart technologies, robots, and artificial intelligence that control our every step. They make our lives easier. But think about it. Just like the geniuses of the past, are we hiding our own invisible killer inside the very code we are writing today? One day, who will this code really serve? Leave your thoughts in the comments. Until we meet again in the darkest pages of history, be careful with what you invent.